James Rolfe, the talent behind one of YouTube's most beloved fictional characters, the Nerd, has become a punching bag for disgruntled viewers who claim that James's content does not match the same quality that it did back when his passion was more apparent and he had more time to invest in his craft.
I just don't have the time.
And I do agree that James's most recent videos are just not as good as his older videos that once offered a review with a well-produced shoestring budget skit, and now mostly reduced to a static shot of James on the couch because it's become a hassle to him to get multiple camera angles. But do I think that the backlash from James's viewers is deserved? No, I don't, but criticism is a funny thing. It can be helpful and it can be constructive, or it can be hurtful and cruel. I for one am a big fan, and I always will be a big fan even if his newer videos are lacking something. But the main reason I come back is for James himself. I like James Rolfe. The first time I stumbled across the angry video game nerd was probably in 2019, and if you have seen my channel you will know I'm a fan of nostalgia, so I had probably searched for a Ghostbusters game or maybe a Ninja Turtles game, something from my childhood, something that I played myself, and that's when I came across the angry video game nerd. After watching that first video, I looked through his back catalogue looking for episodes of games that I played as a child, and I went from one video to the next. And as I watched, I discovered the man behind the nerd, James himself, and he seemed like a really nice guy, down to earth, nothing like the character he played. Now, eventually I ran out of episodes, and what I mean by that is I ran out of episodes that I could relate to, video games that I played myself when I was a child. And all that remained were episodes on topics and video games that I had no interest in, but I still found myself clicking on those videos, something that I wouldn't normally do, and I realised that I was now fully invested in James Rolfe rather than the subject of the video. Now, at that time in my life, I was going through some personal problems, feeling down, etc. And believe it or not, it was these videos that cheered me up. They were like a comfort blanket, and I binge watched every single episode night after night, one after the other, regardless of the subject. James Rolfe actually helped me in more ways than he will ever know, just through watching his videos, watching the nerd angrily review old shitty games with a comedic spin whilst knocking back a bottle of Rolling Rock.
Bart's my ass and Krusty's my balls.
There was something captivating about James Rolfe. I admired his passion for making content and his passion for movies. He is a fan of the Universal monsters, and so am I. And I was educated through his videos and inspired. I really enjoyed the Mega Man episode, which concluded with a now famous Bugs Bunny ass whooping, and the Batman episode where James's pal Mike played the Joker and has some shitty games shoved up his ass. And Superman 64 was another classic video with plenty of laughs. The Friday the 13th episode was a brilliant video with a horror skit that went along with it, as Jason Voorhees forces James to play these shitty Friday the 13th games. And the Home Alone Christmas episode starring Macaulay Culkin was an absolute blast. I really did enjoy that episode. And I really like the collaborations between James and other YouTube creators such as Doug Walker from Channel Awesome and Pat the NES Punk. There is something that is so gloriously cringy about those episodes, and yet that's what makes them so watchable. And as time went on, I also found that I enjoyed watching James's other content on his channel, such as Bored James and Do You Know What Is BS. His movie reviews were really fun, and his movie location videos were really interesting. Now, I'd never felt this way before about a creator, apart from maybe Kevin Smith, who I knew through his movies and his podcast, Fat Man on Batman, and in a similar way, I also binge listened to all of those episodes of Fat Man on Batman, and it was Kevin Smith who inspired me to make my own podcast that I'm still making to this very day. And if Kevin Smith was the reason I started making a podcast, James Rolfe was most definitely the reason I started making YouTube videos, just like many other creators on this platform. James also had a passion for making films, and he has made quite a lot, especially when he was a young kid and growing into a teenager with one of those over-the-shoulder camcorders. And well, they are not great, and even James himself says as much, but they show his passion, and it's been a part of him from a young age to make film, and you can actually see how he has grown through the years. The Angry Video Game Nerd, the movie. Now, for many, this marks the decline of quality in the Nerd's episodes. I don't really share that thought, but it was clear that this took its toll on James during and after the movie was finished. He even talks about this in length in his autobiography, which I enjoyed quite a lot. The movie was somewhat of a failure, and many think that the movie is awful, and yeah, it's not what I would call a great movie. In my opinion, It's fine for what it is, but does not quite hit the mark, with some silly jokes that don't quite hit home, and the fact that his friends from the web show did not make an appearance in this movie, it just made it feel like an alternative universe version of The Nerd. Also, the fact that they could not acquire the rights to actually have the Atari ET game in the movie instantly made you disconnect from the plot. But saying that, I look at this movie in the same vein as Clerks and reminds me in a strange way of Wayne's World, a comparison that James made himself. And honestly, it's exactly what I expected from James. It's exactly what I expected from this movie before I actually saw it. Okay, so let me try and explain what I mean by that. James's YouTube videos have a rough quality to them. They look cheap, but that's not an insult, that's part of the charm. And for that reason, I kind of enjoy the movie with its special effects that are reminiscent of the ones used on the web show, but obviously a little bit more polished and expensive. And that's what I expected from this movie. I didn't expect any more. In my opinion, the movie is enjoyable. And I expect that James does not see the movie as a failure, as he has spent most of his life making silly movies on VHS tape in his back garden and around his house. This was his dream. He always wanted to make an actual movie. He did just that, and I think that's something to be proud of, regardless of whether or not it was a box office success. During the making of the movie, obviously James weren't putting out as much content on YouTube. And after the movie was all wrapped, the fans also noticed that James was now releasing less videos. But this was due to the birth of his first child in 2013 and obviously other family commitments. Now, James did actually return in a big way during COVID because now he had time to actually produce videos, and I think it was a record-breaking time for Angry Video Game Nerd in actually getting these videos out. But as time went on, I think the main complaint is that James does not seem to have much time to commit fully to the channel these days, which is understandable. He's now a father. I get it totally.
That's it. We just ran out of time because I have to be done at 5:40 right now.
But the fact that James now had very little time became more apparent on many of his videos, and it actually became a meme. But many of his fans were confused as to why he did not have enough time to make videos when Cinemassacre was his job. He does not have a day job. This was his main job, so why does he not have time to make videos? But in my opinion, when it comes down to it, it's his choice when it comes to the amount of content he churns out. And I'm more than happy to wait a little longer. After all, there's plenty of other videos to view on the channel to watch in the meantime. However, I do admit that some of the content James has released in the last few years has not been my cup of tea. And I've got to say, even I turned off now and again. Screenwave was brought on board to help James with the writing, editing and so on. And it just felt like as soon as Screenwave got involved with the channel, it seemed to take away the soul of Cinemassacre. Now, since the appearance of Screenwave on the channel, it seemed like the content was being created purely to make a buck. Content did come faster, but it seemed half-hearted. And ads now seem to be the first priority, and the actual quality of the content second. Now, the channel seemed to be invaded by the Screenwave guys, mainly Justin and Kieran, and fan favourites Mike and Bootsy, who had been around since the early days, more or less left the show, and the fans did not like this at all. There was a backlash, prompting James to make a video where he would address some comments of the asshole variety.
And I'll even address a few complaints of the asshole-ish variety.
Now, in this behind the scenes video, James showed off his nerd room and showed us around the questionable DIY methods he used for filming equipment, such as securing a tripod to a block of wood with some large nails. And the thing that puzzled most people was the fact that he attached his lights to the ceiling with craft wire to save floor space and to save time. It was admittedly a strange video, even from the very beginning of the video when he admitted that the mic he was using hadn't caught any audio, but the boom mic had. This is something that he didn't need to address, and it could have just gone unnoticed. It was a strange thing to tell us.
I recorded this entire video and realized this mic is not plugged in.
This video has now become very famous and raised a few questions. I myself did not see how this was so unacceptable to some people. I admit it's very entertaining and amusing and a little bizarre, but it works for James, and at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. I mean, I also have some dodgy DIY when it comes to my setup, nothing as drastic as sticking lights to the ceiling, but my equipment is modified to work for me. With my lights attached to a tripod to my rig, and I've crudely attached the teleprompter with some Gorilla Tape and craft wire. I'm only earning a trickle of revenue, and I can only assume that James is not without a penny or two, so the fact that he does not upgrade his setup is a little puzzling. Now, it was this behind the scenes video that caught the attention of another YouTube channel called Red Cow Arcade, who dedicated an episode to how bizarre this video was.
James Rolfe's behind the scenes video. I want to talk about it at length.
And that's how I came across her channel. I like to watch reaction videos to James's videos. It's somewhat entertaining to see how others react to some of the drama around the channel. In the Red Cow video, Frankie and EJ discuss and critique the video that James Rolfe made, sometimes poking fun here and there as the video goes on, and I must admit, at first I thought they were haters of James, like some channels tend to be. And even Frankie has commented that this episode that he put out received a lot of hate at first. But upon further listening, I figured out that EJ and Frankie were actually fans of James Rolfe. They have been watching his videos from the start, and they enjoyed his content. They were fans. And underneath the critique, they simply wanted James to return to form and these slobs to disappear from the screen.
You know, I know we've made a lot of videos about James, but I don't feel any. I mean, I like him. I think he's cool, and I really like what I followed him. I didn't miss a video. I watched every Turtle Tuesday and Monster Madness. I went to the website and refreshed it. You know, I was a fan.
Yeah, we might clown on him. We might clown on him, but we
totally clown on him.
It comes from the place from a fan.
And they also saw James as an inspiration, as I did and many others, and I agreed with everything they were saying. Screenwave were not a welcome addition to this channel. It seemed like Cinemassacre was getting a lot of hate for these changes, but if you look a little deeper and look behind the hate, you'll notice that the real people who were actually upset with this change was the fans, me included of course. But I totally understood where James was coming from. He needed help and Screenwave gave him that help. He needed to balance his family life and his channel, and Screenwave helped. Totally understandable why he went down this route, and it's not uncommon for popular YouTubers to get help with scripts and editing. But maybe Screenwave were a little bit too involved. For me, the most bizarre addition to this channel was the podcast. And at first I thought, okay, this may be interesting. They'd gone to a lot of work, they created a new studio to film it all in. But at the end of the day, I didn't find it that much different from the other series, Rental Reviews, which was a lot more entertaining. The podcast was fine, kinda. I struggled to pay attention. Like I said at the beginning, I like Cinemassacre for James Rolfe, not two guys with as much charisma as my big toe. No offence. I actually remember once they released a video where they were reviewing a VR game, I think it was Resident Evil, but this video was starring Justin and Kieran, two people that I have no interest in watching at all. And once again, no offence, but I want to see James Rolfe on his own channel. In my opinion, to release a video that did not include James on his own channel was ludicrous, and it just did not hold my attention.
I gotta poke this guy in the ass. There we go.
Since the appearance of Screenwave, everything seemed to be made purely to make a buck. Content came faster, but like I said before, seemed half-hearted, and ads seemed to be their first priority and content second. The best example of this would be the anniversary episode that I was so looking forward to, an episode dedicated to the nerd's worst nightmare, LJN.
The laughing, joking numbnuts, LJN.
This was promised to be a massive blowout 200th episode, and instead Screenwave split the episode into 3 parts to maximise the ad revenue. Most of the clips were recycled and the plot of the episode was subpar. And then we got Rex Viper, and when James started to post his movie related songs with a video game twist performed by his band Rex Viper, I was invested. I actually enjoyed these videos. They entertained me, probably for the wrong reasons, but they did entertain me nonetheless. Now, would I buy a Rex Viper album? Probably not, but I'll contribute ad revenue by watching the new videos because they are entertaining, regardless of if the band are any good or not. Nowadays, the nerd episodes don't seem to be released as often as they used to be, but when they do come, I enjoy them a lot, even if some of them are a bit strange, like the episode he did covering the mobile game My Horse Prince. That episode was totally unexpected and partly filmed in portrait mode on his mobile phone, which made it feel like I was watching an extended YouTube short, and it was jarring, but at the same time it was totally entertaining. But don't get me wrong, every now and again, James does return to form, especially with his nerd episodes, which always seem to get the most views. And then the other videos he puts out kind of feel like fillers, but some of them I do enjoy. I think these filler episodes are just easier for him to film and get out, but I don't mind them. I quite like the inclusion of Neighbour Nerds, where James invites his neighbour in to play some old video games. These videos are not as popular, but I do like them for what they are. Nowadays, I don't sit through all of James's videos, I'll admit, but I'm still glad of the content when it comes. I'm still a massive fan, and I have no problem waiting and looking forward to his next video and watching how the journey of his channel unfolds. Because I like James Rolfe.